Hey everybody, I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 49, Feeling So Fine, about your career in 2020. You guys, we had the best meetup and the best live show. Oh my gosh, it was so inspiring and so exciting. You guys, I just can't even with it. It was so great. You know, I had friends of mine come and they were like, holy shit, Audrey, I can't believe all these people are here. And I was like, I know. We're awesome. So I'm so excited. Thank you so much for coming. I am so inspired. I learned so much. Isn't David White just so great? I mean, he's just so great. If you live in another market, I'm trying my best to take this on the road and get to you Atlanta, get to you New Mexico, get to you Chicago, get to you New York. Like I want to get to you. You just got to give me some time. I'm working on it. So thank you so much. Thanks so much for everybody on social media who tagged and posted and talked about the show. And also those of you who really responded to last week's episode. Oh my gosh. Wasn't Miata's episode the most incredible episode? Like when we break down that $200,000 and then you're left with, you know how much you're left with. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I had so many people reach out really thanking me for making things so clear because knowledge is power. I was a little worried about the episode. I was a little worried you were all going to be like really devastated. Maybe you are. Maybe you're devastated and empowered at the same time. But I really find it's so important for us to know like the framework of the game that we're actually playing so that we can set ourselves up to win, right? That's how I feel. So speaking of, today she's so great. We have Avital Ash. So you guys should know that like I used to geek out to Avital because I've been following her work for a long time. She's had so many shows that have gone. So just a little like rundown about her. So she wrote and directed this web series that she starred in, and then CBS freaking bought it and turned it into its own show with the executive producers of How I Met Your Mother because they were like, this is amazing. They created it. It was amazing. I remember reading that pilot. This is a few years ago and being like, oh my God, this is like the best pilot ever. And then researching the webisode and seeing her and seeing what it was based off of. And I was so impressed. I was so impressed / jelly / excited for her. So she's had multiple pilots sold, shot, made, and we get into it because you guys, she couldn't even get an audition to her own pilot. She couldn't even get an audition appointment. Her friends were like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm going out for your pilot. And she was like, great, I'm not. So I just want to have this episode because we did Kate Siegel's episode where we talk about creating your own projects. And I wanted to continue that because I get so much feedback from you guys about how important and powerful that episode was to you and how much you related to that. And I know everyone sees like Phoebe Waller-Bridge and they're like, I'm going to be Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And I'm like, yes, go do it. Let's all be Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And then I also want you to know what's happening on the other side and how that can often look like and what is going down. It's the same reason why I want you guys to know, like when you book a commercial, you may get cut out of it. So you're not completely devastated when that happens to you. Just like that, you may have a show that they buy and gets sold and gets to pilot and gets famous people casting it, and you don't get an audition until you fight for it. Like that's real. So we get into it, and she's so great, you guys. I love this episode. We're just a couple of gal pals just chatting it up, having a real talk, and I love it. I think you're going to be really inspired and really informed. So today's episode is brought to you by Greg Saffel. Greg Saffel, singinglessonslosangeles.com. It's the new year. We're going to talk about your voice. And We Audition. That's weaudition.com. I told you last time. I'm going to tell you again. Just get on We Audition. Listen, I'm the kind of person that needs to work through things out loud, like a lot. And having something like We Audition where I can just get on it, I can run it, I can find some impulses is really helpful to me. I booked a really big job at the end of the year, got a month of work. It was really exciting. And I used Barry Clifton, hey Barry, over at We Audition. So give it a go. Promo code Audrey25. Listen, Audrey25 gets you 25% off. When you use our promo code, it helps us. And I just really appreciate your help. All right, you guys. I hope you're on your way to audition. I've got so many emails that you booked. Oh my God. And I got so many more emails from those of you who attended the live show. You've already joined. You were eligible and you've already joined the union, which I just think is so cool. Yay. Yay for all of us. Actors unite. United we stand. All right. I hope you're on your way to an audition. Book it!
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Avital Ash.
Hi, Avital.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm really glad to be here.
I'm like a little geeked out that you're here. See, you reached out really wanting to talk about creating your own projects.
Yeah.
So let me tell you why I'm excited about that. And
Okay.
then you can like add your own. Okay. I remember reading this pilot. I'm a crazy person. When pilot season comes along, I just read all of them because I'm just like trying to see what's happening and what's up. And I do it usually in January before they start auditioning. So I'm sort of like
caught up.
Yeah, see what's going on, right? And
Or
I remember,
ahead.
or ahead, right? And I remember reading it and I was like, oh, this is so beautiful and so lovely because I have a real point of view. I don't know, as a woman in 2019, I really crave softness. I crave romance. I crave, sweetness. I feel like we're being such great warriors right now, which is really fantastic. But I also really crave a feminine gushiness. And I notice that it affects my personality and makes me just in general like a little sweeter to my husband and just a little softness to the sharp edge that I feel like we are really walking around with for very good reasons. And, we just took a real dive away from romantic comedies and romances starting around like 2005. It was just sort of died off, right? So then I remember reading, so I read the pilot and then I read about it. And then I remember watching the web series and being like, oh my God, this is so sweet. And then really being fascinated by all that had already gone down as far as I could see of like the girl that then got cast in the lead and all of this sort of stuff. And I remember being like, A, jealous, B, fascinated, C, excited, all the feelings that you have when somebody's successful in a way that you haven't put it together to have some like beat of success, right? And creating your own projects and things like that. And I remember thinking like, wow, how exciting that she created this thing and then a network is interested and then they created this show off of it. And then how interesting that she's not going to get to be the lead. And then I wonder what credit she gets. Like, is she going to be in the writer's room or is she going to be on the show? And but also how exciting, but also, all the sort of realities that come with, because there is so much discussion in this industry that I think it can be dangerous about creating your own content. And the reason I think it's dangerous is in the same way that we're like telling this fantasy story about being an actor.
Totally.
I think we tell this fantasy story about creating your own content.
Yes. I think because I've been listening to the podcast a lot, and I think you do a really good job of kind of, because nothing is a hard and fast rule.
No, it's not.
And there it has been, I think, a lot of like caution around it. I mean, I've had somebody message me being like, hey, I just moved to LA. You know my sister. Can you introduce me to William Morris? Because, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I'm interested in acting part-time. It's like, that's not how this works.
But also when those happen, I'm like, aw.
Yeah,
it was. They're sweet.
Well, it ended up not being sweet because I gave like actual good advice that I didn't know when I first moved here. Of like, just get headshots, get on LA casting, get on Actors Access, do some student films, build a reel. And he was just like, no, I want to meet the top agencies.
I just want to be famous. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about. You reached out and you were like, I create a lot of content. I do it in a way that is, to subvert these sort of like front door opportunities and get more sort of go in through the window, go in through the basement. Like, how are we going to do
I'm
it?
a ninja.
Right. And I want to talk a little bit about the work involved. And my intention is really because I really have seen people do what I call project hop in a way that I think can be really dangerous and detrimental actually to your growth. And the difference between that and what I really see you doing, which is you are creating content, but it's not like I'm creating content. It's like you, I feel like you enjoy yourself. You enjoy your sense of humor. You enjoy your point of view.
That's so nice. I don't really feel like I enjoy myself. I feel like I'm starting to more.
Okay, good.
But that's lovely to be perceived.
Yeah, I think you, it looks like you're having a good time, as good as anyone's going to have, and plodding along, right?
Yeah.
And I really think that that's pretty instrumental and key, I feel, is I think people can really tell intention.
Yeah.
And if you're making something and your intention is because F Hollywood and you're just going to become famous because this project's going to be so awesome, it's a little bit to me like the guy who called you up and says, I want to just be introduced to William Morris. Right. Without really understanding and to a degree I'm okay with not understanding fully the time and energy and money commitment to creating your own content. But I always say it's actually not easier. Right. And I think the misconception is I'm going to go create my own content.
I'm just going to create. It's it's not a just.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're so right. I'm just going
to that's easier.
Right. Yeah. People who reach out to me about a podcast and I'm okay, well
I'm just going to do a podcast.
Yeah, I'll just do a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm well, just so you know, it's a lot of hours and a lot of work. And so I'm not saying you can't do that. I just want you to know it's not this thing that you just I
thought about doing a podcast for so long before I did, and I thought about it that way. I'm well, I should just do a podcast.
Yes.
And my boyfriend has a podcasting network. You talk a lot about how everybody has their different advantages.
Yes, right, exactly.
And I'm sure people think that I have a lot of things through him. I don't.
Sure. Well, listen, I have a lot of things through Jesse, and it's great. Listen, I highly recommend it. If you're gonna partner in life with somebody, find someone who can edit your reel. That's what I'll say.
But just he has the network. My podcast is not even on his network, but I can use his studio. I can use.
Yes.
So I was I should just have a podcast. And he was it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yes.
And then eventually I was I'm going to try this and see. And I'm liking it. So that's the point.
But you came to it, I think, with already a lot of understanding that whenever you go into an endeavor, however you think it's going to go, it's usually, it costs more in time, energy, and money than usually I think people will ever perceive that it will. Even
I think I've gone to the other side where I'm expecting it to cost so much more.
I do the same thing. And I think that's a great producer. I think a great producer is somebody who's this is going to take 6 days and $5 million.
Yeah, that's exactly
And then they're actually
in an hour.
And we could do it in 200,000. You're I'm amazing.
Yeah, exactly. At some point I want to ask you about, because I'm not great at being organized.
I'll write it down.
Okay, great.
We'll talk about it because it's something, it's something that I think I get a reputation for, obviously, if you sit in my office.
Seems like you're very good at it. Yeah, and I was trying not to be too distracted by the
how
files.
It is. Yes, a lot of files here, you guys. But it's actually, that's learned behavior, honestly.
I want that.
Yeah, it's just, you just implement it eventually because you're this is, I actually think the more busy and the more successful you become, I have found the more of a necessity is, and it actually simplifies things.
I agree.
And so to a degree, if you're not organized, it's a little bit indicative to me of you're not quite at a level of operating at your highest capacity. Right. Because once you are, then you're I just need things to be quick and easy and found.
I think some of it even is sabotage of this is a mess, so I'm going to waste a lot of time sorting through it to figure out this thing, and then then up your opportunity.
Time becomes too valuable for you to be I'm going to look for that file.
Right.
I can't. Okay. Yeah. Tell everybody a little bit about your landscape. Are you repped? Do you work commercially, theatrically, voiceover, comedy, drama? Give everyone a little bit of your landscape. How long have you been in LA?
Oh, man, so long.
Okay, good. Since she was
15 years, since I was 18.
Wow. Congrats.
Thanks. I don't know. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to be I should be further. I should be here. I should be there. Okay. So I started out really interested in drama. I didn't think of myself as a comedy person at all.
Yes.
I mean, I still love both. I'm sure you get it.
It's I
even ran into somebody recently who was I didn't know what he did, and he was telling me he writes for this show, and it's going to be on Netflix soon, a drama. And I was oh, cool. He's well, I started in comedy, and then nobody would hire me, and it seems nobody misses me in comedy, so it's fine to be doing drama. And I was I write comedy because nobody thinks that I know drama.
Isn't it funny how you get momentum in another? I love that for the listeners listening to that. I think that's something you don't usually get to choose.
Yeah.
You just sort of book the job that you happen to book, and then it gets a little momentum, and then suddenly that's a category. Your thing. So you have a theatrical agent, a commercial agent, a voiceover agent, a manager. What's going on?
Right now I have a manager and a commercial agent.
Okay, great. You're a commercial agent. And
I just split with it was like the
Theatrical.
first time I really liked my theatrical.
Oh, shit.
But I sort of wasn't getting along with the lit side as much.
Oh, I see.
Like I started wanting to staff for shows because I've been seeing, like that's how Mindy Kaling got it.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I had this, I thought, really great audition that I was like perfect for. I nailed it. It's like a stand-up and she suffers with mental illness and I've been on antidepressants since I'm 11,
Woohoo.
And it just felt like very perfect. It went to somebody who writes on the show. And I was like, okay, she probably wrote that for herself. And I can't begrudge her that. And I was like, okay, I want to try and staff on a show. And then my like lit person was like, oh, that's going to come down to your relationships. And that bothered me.
It's just so amazing too, because that's the exact thing that they're now saying. Like, no, we get you the job, and every writer is like, no, I get myself all of my jobs.
Yes.
And then I love that like the lit agent is
Straight
literally
up said
like,
that.
it's like, no, you get your own work as a lit.
But it's
as a
also
writer.
like, oh, but you'll take 10% of it.
No, right. Yeah, fuck off. That's how I feel about it. So do you work in voiceover and commercial in addition to theatrical writing and all that?
Yes. Well, I've been mostly, my income has been a combination of writing and theatrical.
Okay.
I was not booking commercials, so I booked out for like a year. I was like, I'm never going to book. This is a waste of time. I'm going to book out again. And then I just shot a commercial last week.
Okay, congratulations.
For the first time in ages. But we'll see, because you know how it is. It's like the last commercial I did, I got cut out of, and it was $1,000 for the day or whatever.
Yeah.
But that like barely covers my gas to and from Santa Monica 5 times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
I don't have a ton of faith in commercials, but I also have a friend who's been, for me.
Yeah, right.
I have a friend who's been so poor, my poorest friend, very talented, but like always struggling, never know how she's going to make rent.
Yeah, right.
And she just booked 3 commercials that are airing at the same
God,
time.
I'm so
And it was
happy
like
for her.
yes, me too. It was like a life changer for
But
her.
like literally, I feel like I just can't breathe.
Yeah.
You feel for people and you're like,
Yeah.
and then you hear a story like that and you're like,
Yes.
yes.
And she's
that's
also
so
making
great.
her own work. So she's like made a couple films and now she's going to and she can like afford to fly to these film festivals and get press for herself,
a big deal.
from not being able to pay rent. So I'm like, I'll do it. I'll go out.
And then do you have like a job? Do you have like a job that you go
Not
to?
right now.
That's great.
Thankfully. Yeah, that was another thing that was, okay, so the way that 7P10E kind of came about was I had this manager who really ultimately didn't do much except like you were talking about, like ignite that fire. Because I met with a friend from an acting class. We were both like frustrated. We wrote this like web pilot. And then he was like, oh, this is funny. I can't do anything with it. You should write a whole season. So then we wrote a whole season and then he still didn't do anything.
Yeah,
with
well, that's always the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much of it, especially in the writer's world, is like, I feel like placating writers.
Yeah.
It's like
or just
putting
giving them
you
more.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I'll
putting
give you
you
something
off.
to do.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. No, do it.
Just do a whole thing.
And then you, as an actor, like just I want for the actors listening,
Yeah.
like you take that seriously.
Right.
And you think like, oh, they're interested, but it's
Right.
really like placating interest.
So I guess just to wrap up that piece,
Yes,
we
right.
write this whole thing, nothing happens. Then we decide to like sort of shoot one as a proof of concept. We have some meetings that we sort of set up on our own.
Yeah.
And I had kind of made this deal with myself that this opportunity to volunteer in Israel came up. And I was like, okay, if nobody buys this, I'm going to go.
Off to Israel she goes.
Yes, exactly.
The homeland.
Which
Yes.
is where the 7P10E idea came from. Because initially I was like, oh, well, I could still stay sharp creatively and I'll have all this production value because I'll be in Israel. So it's
Hilarious.
this like long distance thing, which
hilarious.
never would have worked because we ended up shooting it in the same house
Right,
and it was like
exactly.
still a technical nightmare.
Okay, good.
But when I came back, I was like ready to hit the ground running. And then once there was interest from CBS in picking up 7P10E, we had this other piece to show. And then we ended up making the whole season. No longer with that manager,
Sure.
total different reps.
Sure.
Never came out. Adrian Palicki from your show, The Orville,
Oh,
is
yes.
in it.
Yes,
It'll probably never see the light of
Yeah,
day, but
right.
it did it ended up like letting me quit my day job.
That's great.
And I
how
got
many
paid as a
episodes
writer,
did
an
you
actor,
get?
producer, 6 episodes.
So 6 is pretty good.
Yeah.
And
the budget was good.
great. And so tell me again, it was as a writer, director, actor?
Writer, producer, actor.
Well, that's great.
Somebody else
And that was
directed.
kind of that's a big deal right out. Like,
Yeah.
Can out something like that.
Yeah.
And do you feel like so let's really unpack that because everyone listening really just wants to know how you did that, right?
Okay.
Okay. Because
One thing that I really learned that I
Yes.
wish I learned before it was too late was we should have funneled it all as actors through SAG because I made enough to qualify for SAG health insurance, but not with my like acting chunk.
Oh, I see.
So after the fact, I was like, fuck, we should have paid ourselves just as actors.
Also, like this is something I'm getting really interested in is people knowing more about contracts before they actually need those contracts.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm going to be helpful or instrumental in making this a movement. But I really feel that we as creatives do get exploited so much.
100%.
And one of the reasons that we get exploited is we just don't know what's standard.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people have an allegiance to somebody else. Like a lot of people have a lawyer that also reps somebody who's a executive producer at a studio. And
I feel like, so when we were still wrapping up my contract for the CBS deal, I hadn't even gotten anything to look at yet. And the announcement happened that they were going to pilot based on my thing. So we have to resolve it. And I had said to my lawyer.
Well, and I hear that's a tactic.
Well, I said to my lawyer, like, okay, well, can't we just like ask for anything we want at this point? And she was like, well, we don't want to upset CBS. And it's like, oh, you care more about that relationship.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is a very big thing. Yeah, that's exactly what I hear. And that it's really impossible to know, because I have friends who are entertainment lawyers. It's really impossible to know who's actually fighting for who. Right. I remember one of my friends telling me about a contract. He was working for like a network side, and the writer just straight up called him because he was so pissed and thought this lawyer was just fucking him over. You know, how dare you? And don't you understand? And I work my butt off. Now, this friend of mine, he said to the guy, listen, you know what's actually happening is that your agents also represent this guy, and they're selling you out to get a deal on you so that they can use the network to get a bigger paycheck for this other
client.
Guy.
Yep.
And you don't know that, but I can promise you that's what's happening. And he said the real sad part was that writer had no reason to trust my friend. Like, because he just thinks like, well, you're on the opposition team, so like, why would I trust anything that you say?
And he didn't trust him?
Who knows,
right.
you know? But it's like, but also, how can you know? How can you know that my friend was telling the truth and his agent is lying, or that the agent's telling the truth
and
my
also,
friend is
even
lying?
if he believes your friend, like, what do you do?
So
it's hard to find a good agent. Like, you don't just leave that one and then hope the next one's not going to do the same fucking thing, because they probably will.
But wait, Avital, wait. I have to interrupt you.
And now it's time for the new show rundown.
This new show rundown is brought to you by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. You guys, everybody loves Greg. It is a new year, and I know you are all in yoga class right now. Everybody's doing the yoga. Like Los Angeles, I keep trying to buy vegetables. All of the vegetables are sold out. Like, they're all gone. Where is the broccoli, you guys? Where is it? Why can't I find snap peas? It's because all of you guys are like, healthy. Get my body together. So I just want you to remember that an actor needs to have their body and voice in shape. You know, Avital and I were talking right now about, you know, your voice and being a writer and helping hone in your voice, and how having your voice helps you book jobs, and having a strong point of view as an artist helps you book jobs. Let me just tell you that is what voice work is. When you can stand in your voice, in your full voice, and have strength in it, and have dimension and dynamic and all of its power and all of its capacity. And I'm not talking about speaking loudly. For some of you, it's speaking clearly. Like, nobody can understand what you're saying, and no one will tell you that. And I'm here to tell you that if you are a person who is doing a lot of jargon, if you think you're going to do scientists, techies, doctors, you need to be in a voice class. You need to be doing voice lessons, because people have to understand what it is that you are saying. So your consonants, your vowels, they need to be clean and clear. If you are a person who has difficulty accessing your emotional life, voice lessons, you guys, voice lessons, your diaphragm, your voice is directly connected to your emotional capacity. So many of you men have learned by age 5 not to be emotional, not to cry, and you are holding so much tension in your throat and in your shoulders to like be men. And then when it comes to an emotional scene, you are freaked out. I can only tell you, I've worked with Greg for years. He's so great. I've sent people to Greg, and their acting teachers have been like, whoa, what did you do? He also works on accent reduction. I know a lot of you need to work on your accent reduction. And listen, if you are a total beginner, he's so great. He's so nurturing. He's so lovely. And if you're a highly experienced singer, super experienced singers work with him all the time. He will level you up no matter where it is you're starting from. I know that the voice is really uncomfortable to work on, but don't be like, I'm going to yoga, and then be like, man, not voice class. And then judge people who aren't going to yoga. You go to voice class. You will go to voice class. He's super affordable. He makes accessibility is really important to him. So he keeps himself and his prices accessible to all people of all economic levels. All right, singinglessonslosangeles.com. Okay, so the new show rundown. I just wanted to give you guys some numbers. 532 original TV shows were created in 2019. 532, you guys, 532. And I just wanted you to have that number because I think it's really important. And what I am told is it's going to double in 2020. So saddle up. I need you in your audition classes. I need you in your voice classes. I need you getting your stuff together. You should be working and being ready to work out. So that way when the auditions come, you're not like, oh God, how do I do this? What is acting? What is auditioning? Because it happens. It sneaks up on you. So I just wanted you to know the number is 532 original shows in 2019. And we are doubling that is what I hear for 2020. So go get it. Go book those jobs.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I just really am so excited that you're here because I really want them to hear this. Okay. Because I think people are going to want to listen to this and want somebody to tell them like how to do it and how it goes. And what we're really saying is it's messy, you guys. And I don't know to what degree that's on purpose. I don't know what degree that's just like show business. I think show business is messy, right?
And I think it's changing so rapidly that people don't know what to do.
Exactly. And I also, Jesse has this saying of like, everyone's just trying to keep their job.
Yeah.
Which I really believe is
I do
just
too,
so
100%.
center true. Is everyone's just sort of trying to
Not get fired.
Yeah, to not fuck up another they get fired, right? And make good decisions, but like as far as risk taking is concerned, it's like they're just trying not to get fired, right? So I'm just
and there's no predicting because I thought this was a for sure. CBS was looking for their new How I Met Your Mother.
Right.
They had the EPs from How I Met Your Mother on this show. It didn't go. It went again the following year, which usually statistically that's like even more is going to get picked up. It's like they're not ready to give up on this.
Yes.
They really want to make it work. That's why they're redoing it another year. And so I was like, this is a no-brainer. Yeah. And it didn't go.
I just want to caution everyone with this is a no-brainer.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. There's no rhyme or reason. You only make that
mistake. I mean, but I will say like, however good I think I am, like I get like risen up to a new level of like, you know, nothing's guaranteed.
By the way, not a reflection of me.
No.
I wasn't like, I'm good. I had nothing to do with the second time.
It's not your thing.
Yeah.
Right? No, I guess I'm saying more like the farther I go, and I think I've like become a Zen master of like expect nothing. Yeah. And then something will happen, like some new opportunity will come, and it won't even occur to me to expect nothing. Right. Like it doesn't even occur to me. And then sure enough, taken out from under me. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you know better than to expect anything. and then you get screwed. So okay, so I want to like plot this journey for them because I think it's really so good. So good in like the most horrifying way. Okay. So you do it the first time. Sort of
I
love story.
shot this 5-minute teaser. We pitched it. Nobody wanted it.
Okay.
It was called This Is Why You're Single. And I did with Danielle Renee, who's an actress from Texas and also a writer now. She's writing a movie with Adrian Palicki.
Oh, well, there she is.
And we like wrote this whole season that my manager told us to do. Nothing happened with it.
Great.
Then we shoot this 5-minute version of it.
Okay.
And some people almost produce it. No one does. But we've shot this 5-minute teaser that we have.
And then do you go off to Israel or then do you shoot
Then I go off to
7:10?
Israel.
Okay.
When I came back, I shot 7P 10E.
Okay, so then you shoot 7P 10E, and then you hang out, and then...
And while people are interested in 7P 10E, and that might get made, it's like, what else do you have?
Right, because that's
what else do you have is a big thing.
It's a big thing, just so you guys know.
Always like have something.
Yeah, even ideas. Right?
I mean, so one thing that you touched on that I think is so important because it's that same thing of like... You don't want to overstep, but you don't want to be too small. Like this constant, like, which is the right move? And something that I struggle with, I can't remember what language you used. I loved it. Oh, like project hopping.
Yes, project hopping.
In The Artist's Way, he calls it a creative U-turn, where like you get so close to the thing and you give up and you turn around.
Can I just like hallelujah to that concept? Because I think that's very common. I think it's like when you're on, and any acting teacher who's like a master who's worked with actors for a long time will talk about this phenomenon, that right when an actor is really about to make a breakthrough, they're like, suddenly I can't afford it, or suddenly this thing, or my mom, or this job.
Right.
And then they U-turn, they go back, right?
So for me, what I did with Kaleidoscope, which was my feature at 21
Yes,
that I really had no business making, but that was like my film school. And that honestly is not bad. I'm
that's
proud of a
great.
lot about it.
Love it.
But I spent so long like retooling and like fixing the edit and trying to get it right. And when I should have also been doing other projects.
I think that's so true. And that's a very common thing. I mean, I know a lot of people who land in what you're describing is called post-hell.
Yeah.
So they land in post-hell.
And then you need more money for post.
And then more money for post. And then reshoots. And then more money for post.
we did reshoots.
And then it turns into like a 4 to 8 year
Yes, it was.
thing.
It fully was. That's where my time went from.
That's it. And so I want to give a statistic that I heard that I thought was really interesting. I think it's 0.04% of movies made under, I think it was $2 million budget. So independent films under $2 million.
Mine was way under.
Right. When most
Yeah.
are, right? 0.04% of them will make their money back.
Wow.
And I was like, oh God, is
We
that
did not
true?
tell our investors that statistic.
Well, and that's the thing is I think also it's another example for me about exploitation and like the selling of a dream.
Totally.
Because I really don't mind people creating material in the sense of like, okay, well, let's see how this works.
Right.
And like, let's do this. Just like, probably the first headshots you get aren't going to be successful.
Right. And your first audition.
In your first audition, and it just happens to be that to be a filmmaker is an expensive endeavor. It's getting cheaper and cheaper, but it can be and often is a very expensive endeavor, even at its cheapest, right? And if you're not spending money, then you are spending time, right? So either way, it can be expensive. And if you knew that unless you have 2 million or more, that you have a 0.04% chance of getting your money back, not even it being like
Successful.
the dream,
Just
right?
breaking even.
Just breaking even. Then I bet a lot more people would go about it more intelligently.
Yeah.
Even in just, I'd say, this is really where I care about, like your emotional approach
Yeah.
to the whole process.
100%.
Like have an emotional approach of this is going
I'm
to
saying
be
100% a lot, but I'm just
but it's
agreeing
true.
with you.
Okay, I just let you be agreed with. But an emotional approach to what you actually hope to gain out of this process.
Yeah.
And, yes, if you're going to go to college and spend X amount of money to go to film school, like a lot of people are like, don't spend the money to go to film school, just make films and spend the amount of money you would make in film school, spend it making films. But then it's like, yes, but then no, that's what you're doing is you're putting yourself into
It's
a
film
self-imposed film school.
Yeah.
Not that you're necessarily going to make this thing and then it's going to go to Sundance, because the stories that always get propagated is the 0.04%.
Right, the success stories.
And they get dangled. And it's because of that. Then I think all these corporations and all these festivals and all these things, they get to sort of like dangle a carrot in front of you. And then you spend all this money to attend and to go to these parties and to, look cool. And
just
cool.
submitting to film festivals gets
so
expensive. Yeah.
right? And I just feel like who's using who?
Right.
Yeah.
And
again, I'm totally fine with whatever it is. I just want people to sort of know what the landscape really looks like.
And again, it's that feeling of never knowing what the right, because until I read about the creative U-turn, I had written this script and I was like, it's just not that good. And was ready to totally bail on it. And I'm really glad that I'm back and I've sent it to some people and I'm getting some feedback and we'll see maybe nothing will happen, but hopefully something will. And if it doesn't, it won't be because I abandoned it.
Yes.
But then meanwhile with Kaleidoscope, I spent 7 years trying to make it perfect.
This is really common. And it's
just hard to know which is like bailing on something too soon and which is like holding on and being like, this will be the thing that makes me, when it's not going to happen.
And honestly, like, you won't hear me say this often, you guys, but like, I don't have an answer for that. Like it's
all of this gray zone.
It's a gray zone that I honestly don't know that you're going to know until you have some perspective once you've made a choice. Right. And I will say that,
I was mortified when 7P10 went up. I was like, this is so bad.
That's so funny. Yeah.
And it opened doors for me and I felt really like small putting it up.
Yeah. Let's go back to the timeline just so people have it.
Okay.
So first you created this project of this pilot that was named
This Is Why You're Single.
Great. And you did that, and it got like maybe a little interest, but then it didn't really get bites like you thought. So off to Israel you go. You come back from Israel. You create a show called 7E10P. So you made it with somebody that you knew, right?
Yeah.
And $60 on equipment, right? That's
Screen capture software.
When you guys look at it, you'll see. And then that
no
gets
sound, no cameras,
Right.
just like straight up
Just
2 laptops
love.
that we recorded.
And then you get like a little interest in that. But actually what happens is that because of the interest of that, they go, what else do you have? And so the first project 1, pre-Israel project, gets
which
a
is
little,
really in the grand scheme like Project 10. But yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gets a little bit of traction. It gets a little bit of notice. But I do want you guys to hear Project 10, not Project 1, right? And so that one gets a little more traction than 7E10P. And then from that, you get 6 episodes as a writer, producer, actor. This is like the dream. And it's with this company that was bought by Disney. And you're like, hallelujah. And I imagine you were probably writing pretty high after this occurred.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. It's still hard to enjoy it.
Did you? And then you shot all 6. Great. And then it doesn't.
We had written like 12.
Great.
Or 14.
But you shot 6, and then nothing happened.
Then they like became more of Disney and Disney branding, and this was much more sardonic, and it was like, this doesn't fit anymore.
I want you guys to know this is really common.
Yeah.
Jesse has had some of his projects have this happen where it was with a studio.
There's a regime change.
And then there's a regime change, and a lot of shows that are your favorite shows actually end up being canceled because of this too. Yeah. Because the regime change happens, and suddenly it's not in alignment with whoever's now steering the ship.
Yeah.
So so you do it, and then, but I think a lot of people wouldn't know that that's something that could happen, because I know, watching Jesse go through his own creative endeavors, like there were just so many times where like he didn't know that that's what's going on until after it went on, and then you spent 8 months waiting, only to discover like it was never going to happen, not because of anything about anything, except for a regime change happens that you weren't privy to until it already went through, right? Okay.
It did come out in Australia, evidently.
Hilarious.
But it didn't come out here.
Okay, good. So Australia knows all about it. Okay, good. So then then that calms down. And then what's the time period between that happening and then the CBS reiteration of 7E10P?
This is a good question that I don't totally know the answer to.
Yeah, because it was
don't
all
remember.
a fog.
It's all a fog. We shot that, and then...
Was it like a year later?
In my mind, they're like right on top of each other, but I don't think that's true.
I bet it was probably a year.
I could like consult my Instagram to figure it out.
Okay, good. Okay, but either way, so then they approach you, and the network...
Well, first, several deals fall apart about making 7P10E.
I love this because that's also usually the case, you guys. It's a lot of almost.
It was like at Jennifer Garner's company, and then it was at Dark Toy with Todd Holland, who I loved. I thought like his input was really great. I also was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And things were getting really confused on the way back to the Lawyers and Agents, where it was like, okay, Jennifer Garner's company is excited to do it, but they say you're like not involved at all.
Right.
And then Todd is into it, but is like, but she has to like show run by herself. And I was like, I'm not saying I'm down with whatever like down the middle thing, but somehow it becomes like one extreme over here, one extreme over there.
Yeah.
I have this other writer that I met through WME, like his voice in my head being like, don't like separate yourself from this project. You have something special
that they want. Right. Okay. So then,
and then, okay, now this helps me with the timeline a little bit, because then that writer is like, we should just work on it.
Oh, I see.
And we started to, and then the 6 episodes got greenlit. So I was like, okay, I have to work on this
to the
thing.
6 episodes.
And then I think as that was happening, or right at the end of it, was like the call, hey, CBS wants to develop this as a pilot. Are you still interested in selling it? And that's when I went back to Mike, like, I'm really sorry. I think I just have to sell this. Like, I don't want to keep
you're in
spending
the middle
time.
Of this thing. Okay,
and it's also the like 8 years or whatever on Kaleidoscope of like, I already made this project. It's on the internet. I don't need to like rewrite it and hold on to it and hope like just let somebody make this.
Well, and also you had a success that was going. That was sort of, and so maybe if you hadn't had that thing, or if you knew that was going to be
totally
killed,
but I don't in my heart of hearts I was always like, I kind of don't care to tell this story again.
I see what you're saying. Okay, great.
But I felt like, no, I have to, what if this is my only way in?
Yes, I
have to hold on
too. Okay, so then you finish so then project 1/10 doesn't go, and then you get reached out and CBS is going to take it, okay? And the showrunner is attached. Did they shop showrunners? Did they hand it
I think
to
they
her?
wanted her always.
Always, okay.
Yeah.
So Hillary gets attached, and then they also attach the showrunners from How I Met Your Mother, which if you guys read the pilot, it makes perfect sense. And I remember reading it and being like, oh, yes, it's a new How I Met Your Mother. Like, oh, it's so sweet. So you are now in this position of being, I would say, if I was going to say how I bet people are going to like pigeonhole you, I bet they're like, oh, she's a comedian, actress, writer. She's had a couple of shows that have sort of done sort of okay. You know, they've been picked up or bought or whatever, but haven't really gone the full mile. And like, that's probably how they're like marketing or categorizing you, correct?
Probably, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And then, so you're not auditioning a ton, and you never have, right?
Even with my last agent who I really liked, I would go out once or twice a month.
And then when you go out, how does it go?
Good.
Yeah.
Like my favorite thing the other year was this FX pilot that I thought for sure was going to go, also didn't go.
Yeah, interesting.
Seth Rogen produced it.
Yeah.
I loved the
Which
writing.
one is it? Singularity?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It was the part that Amanda Lund ended up getting. And it came down to me and like two other girls. So they were like, you have fans at Point Grey now and whatever. So like it would go well. Well, that even is a good story because I went in, I thought I really gave a good read, and they were like, it's not going any further.
So that didn't go.
No, it didn't go. And I didn't get
And you
to
didn't
the end.
get it. That was another one that was so good that I was
Yeah,
like, where
I
is
love
it?
it. It was so weird that it didn't happen.
I know.
Another fun story is on My Time, Your Time.
Yes.
The night before shooting, they recast. There were two roles, and they cut them both and made it a new part.
Yes.
So imagine you book this pilot, and the night before you shoot, you're gone. But one of the
then
guys
you
that
think
got
it's
cut,
personal.
yes,
Right.
One of the guys that got cut was then the lead on Singularity.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, that's cool. That's like a nice
it worked
happy
out.
ending. Yeah.
Well, and from a rep's point of view, they're really looking for that because they do know that there's only so much that you can control.
Yeah.
And so like they're looking at like, are you testing? Are you,
Right.
you know, are you going far when the opportunities are there for you to go, right?
Which, again, so with Singularity, this was an interesting thing because I really thought I did a good job, and then it was like, it's not going any further. And I was like, okay. And then somebody that I know from like 15 years ago said, hey, I'm having dinner with this guy who's making this new show. They're having a hard time casting one of these parts. And I mentioned that you might be good for it. Do you have a reel or anything? And then I was like, what is it? And he said Singularity. And I was like, oh, I already read for that.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, it was like, casting reviewed your tape and they want to bring you back in. And I was like, casting reviewed my tape probably because Sunny saw my reel and was like, she's good.
I think it's so much that, and I have to say, I think what I've witnessed through people like going up the ladder is that that's very true for comedy.
Yeah.
And I wish I had known about that. I mean, part of it is like when I arrived here, I was just like, I want to be Blanche DuBois for the rest of my life. You know, I was like, I want to be Julianne Moore and Meryl Streep wrapped in a nice little bow, right?
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was, you know, I've been here for a minute and also market. And I also wanted to be like, but I also felt like I could be like Jenna Elfman. Like I wanted to be like the cute, fun girl and like the romantic half hour, right?
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of timing things that were real, but also, you know, in acting class, I started doing this work and everyone was like, oh my God, you know, like drama, like you can do that. And I just, you know, who doesn't want to be the next, you know, Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore? So I just, you know, swallowed that pill as soon as I could take it. And then when I sort of came to the feeling of like, I think I'm more excited by comedy and dark comedy and dramedy, like that's really exciting to me. And then turning around and seeing a lot of the people that were making movement in comedy were people who had just been working the comedy scene now for 10 years, 15 years. And they knew the writers and they knew the executive producers and they had all these sort of things pop. And I had a long period of time where I felt a little bad about making a choice, not knowing better, basically, and wondering that if I had like really put myself into the comedy schools and done that circuit, and I don't know to what that would have led to in terms of relationships. And I say that, but then I also am very aware of plenty of people who work that circuit and work those schools for 10 years, 15 years, and they don't work at all.
I mean, have had a much easier time in stand-up than I had with acting or writing.
That's
where
interesting.
I start, which is not the normal experience.
How much of that do you think is like the timing of it all now, too?
Well, I think kind of what you were saying, and maybe it's not real, but I think if I'd started doing stand-up 15 years ago, I'd be a lot
interesting.
farther ahead than I am now.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because people are receptive to it. And it also, I took a stand-up class, which I highly recommend if you're in LA.
Oh, good. Yeah,
take
stop
Lisa,
that.
if you're a woman in LA, take Lisa Sunstead's class.
Cool.
She's great. I've met like a real tribe of women, which was really cool. I also, on a pilot that I sold that didn't get made, but it kept me
afloat.
afloat, exactly, for a long time. That was
Yeah.
that was more money than I made on.
The other one.
Yeah. Had like 2 characters based on girls from Lisa's classes. So it's always really inspiring for me just even to see people step into themselves and find their voices.
yes, yeah.
But I took it to try and like get a better sense of my voice.
Yeah, I think that's where it's really important.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to keep doing stand-up. I did it just to be like, when people are like, you have a distinct voice, what does that mean? Like, what is my voice? And I think that's so helpful to know. And I think a stand-up class will help you figure that out.
I also really encourage people who are looking at being leads on series. Like, I think, what I know about it is that they are writing for you for 7 years, right?
Right.
And so I think what's exciting, and I just know this is again, like starting to know that you can like trust your point of view. Like for all the years that I did casting director workshops, I would see somebody and whether or not they were good or not, I knew exactly what to do with them.
Right.
Like I was like, oh, I would pass you as this. And then sure enough, that person would get called in that week by that casting director. And that's when I started to really realize like there's talent and then there's clarity.
Yeah. Specificity. It's weird that it's like the more specific something is, the more universal it is.
Oh God, that's such a great way to put
Yeah.
it. And I really find like this clarity of voice that you're talking about, like really knowing what you bring to the table. I think if you are a person who wants a long-lasting career, in particular, I would say television, where they're writing for you for such a long point of time, I really feel that the characters for me that are the most memorable throughout television history, drama or comedy, like the person is bringing so much of themselves and the writers write for their voice and then they are inspired by the writers and the writers are inspired by them. And it's this beautiful symbiotic thing that sort of continues to grow. And knowing what you bring to the table. Also, I have so many stories of people where they rewrite the show for them.
Right.
And I feel or the part, right? And I feel like, oh, okay, then my job is really just to come in and inspire you, have you fall in love with my point of view, with my voice, and go like, oh, we wrote a character to be like this, but I can see this being something that we should take advantage of.
I think it only helps, and something that you've addressed on this podcast before is also sometimes just going into an audition and knowing you have other stuff going on helps.
Yeah, that's
so if you're
totally
doing
right.
stand-up, maybe you love it, maybe you don't, but you're busy.
Yeah.
It's like you can't put as much of your
neuroses.
stock in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really true. You can get so hyper-focused on what's not happening for you today. And
I struggle with that for sure. Because I'm
we
like,
all
why am I not
do.
auditioning? Why am I never auditioning?
It's so funny that you're never auditioning. But wait, Avital, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by We Audition. That's weaudition.com. It's a service you go on. It's kind of like, it's like a Lyft or an Uber, but for actors reading sides. I go on to We Audition if I have an audition and I need to just run it. I'm a person that needs to run it, you guys. And I'll get the audition, I work on it, I do some sort of like work on my own, and then I'll work it on We Audition and get it sort of under my feet. So it feels like it's starting to feel natural and feel in my body. And then I go and work with a coach, and then I go back on We Audition, I work it some more, and then I go maybe and work with Jesse or another coach on it, and then I work on it a little bit more. I'm just trying to get it to feel so natural and so, I want the words to feel in my mouth. I want them to feel in my mouth and in my body and get some timing and get some flow. And I'm recording it and I'm watching it and I'm trying to see like, oh, what moments are popping? Is there anything that's falling flat? Is the story coming through? Does my hair tell the story? Does my outfit get it across? So all those sorts of things. If you can have a friend who can help you, that's great. But sometimes it's just really nice to have somebody else that you can just really quick pay. There's people on there for free. You can just tip them a little bit. There's people on there who are more expensive. It's just whatever it is you're looking for. I found some really good people to just help me work it out. So whatever your needs are, you can be a reader, you can be a coach, you can get a reader, you can get a coach, any of those things. WeAudition.com, promo code Audrey25 for 25% off. I think you guys are all on it already. So if you're not, go do it.
Hey, Audrey. This is Liana from Los Angeles. I have been a fan of your podcast for a while. I think it's such a fantastic service to our community. Thank you so much for that. We actually met at the Actors Fund during a workshop. So my question is regarding entertainment lawyers. You mentioned a few times working with one. And what I'm wondering is if we as actors have agents that oversee contracts for bookings, at what point it might be a prudent thing to enlist the service of an entertainment lawyer? There's just so much information out there regarding agents and managers, but not so much about entertainment lawyers for actors, that I thought maybe you could share a little bit of your experience about you working with yours, and what is the industry trend? Do they work as a retainer or as a percentage of contracts? Anyway, I know it's a little bit of a loaded question, but you always said contracts lead to money, and that's something that we actors need to know more about. So any insights you can share with us in that regard, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, lady. Bye.
Hi there. So I'm so glad you got this question. Yeah, we're going to have a lawyer on hopefully this season. One of our friends is an entertainment lawyer for both actors and some other companies. So I think it's an important topic to discuss because I don't think it's something that most people know about. So you might want to go back and listen to Falk Henschel's first episode from season 1. I believe it's episode 6 or episode 7. And he talks about getting an entertainment lawyer way before he felt like he had any right to do so, and how that had really helped him overall get some better deals and get a little bit more clout. But you have to have access to that lawyer. And he talks also about when you get an entertainment lawyer, know that they take an additional 5%. So if you're going to get somebody, then they need to earn that extra 5%. It's just like anything where when you decide to expand your team, when and why do you get a publicist? Some people get publicists really early because they have the money and ability to do so. When and why do you get a lawyer? So I think it's a personal choice that you have to feel out. And each person in each case is different. Just like, do I get new headshots? For some people, maybe you need new headshots. For some others, maybe you need to work on auditions. And it's not the headshots, it's the auditions, right? So I have a lawyer. I got a lawyer after I had finished filming Godless. That's a decision I also made with my manager. So that's something that you can talk to your team about. When is it good to bring on a lawyer? Now, you may have an agent who doesn't want you to bring on a lawyer because they're worried about their relationships. Some of them have their own allegiances, and maybe their allegiance isn't you. So what you hear me talking about with Avital is how you can have some lawyers that you might hire. Their allegiance may actually not be to you. It may be to the studio, and they don't want to piss off the studio. Or maybe their allegiance is to another client that they represent that you just don't know about. So they're making a deal on you so they can get a bigger payout for a bigger client. All sorts of things that you just can't know about. Generally speaking, a lawyer, I don't think you need a lawyer for your guest star. I don't think that's a thing. But if it's a heavy guest recurrer, that's something you might want to bring a lawyer in on. If it's something that's a heavy guest recur that's traveling, definitely that's something that you might want to bring a lawyer in on, because it can get into the kind of place you stay and the sort of travel that you get and whether or not you get a companion ticket. And if you don't know what those things mean, then you might want to investigate that. When you start getting into, 6-figure salaries for your jobs, that's something that it may be worth bringing a lawyer into, whether that's a recurring role or whether that's a serious regular role. I don't know personally of any serious regulars that don't have a lawyer, though I'm sure they exist. So it's something you might want to just take a look into.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So you wanted to ask me about organization?
I really want to get better at organizing because I think it's one of the many ways that I sabotage myself. Is running out of time, and it's totally preventable.
So a few things that I
And in talking to agents and managers and dealing with that stuff, because I think you're a lot better at it. I feel like I either always like jump ship too quickly or I stay for way too long.
Yeah, I think that's common.
Yeah.
I think that's common. One of the greatest things that I will say, my experience with Abby, my manager, is this thing that you sort of, like, I wouldn't have thought of this, is like, I get better at my job, and she also, of course, gets better at her job because
Right.
people get better at their jobs. And she was already very good, right?
Yeah.
But it's been so interesting to watch her evolution as she's just gotten more years and more experience and knows more about more things.
Right.
And the same is true for me. And so I really take that seriously. I also think that I work my relationships with my reps like pretty early on. I mean, you know, when I talk about like relationships and people working relationships, I would say I'm less skilled at working relationships with like creatives. I'm a little overly polite with casting directors. I'm like a little bit overly like, I just don't want to seem like a
relate to
pyramid
that.
scheme salesman.
Yeah,
you know?
same. I'm like, I have
That-
to just let the work speak for itself.
I mean,
but they don't feel that way.
They
They're
don't,
like, they
honestly.
want to
And
know
then
that you.
sometimes they'll quit casting and I'll be friends with them. And they're like, well, you're so cool. Like, why don't we ever hang out? And I'm like, I could have never. Like,
Right.
I just didn't ever want to.
I have like one casting director friendship, and it's only because she was so friendly to me. I
Yeah,
don't know
right.
why. She
Yeah.
was like, "Here, let me get your number." I was like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, that's so
she's
funny.
awesome. I'm
I
so
love
glad.
that. That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm also like, I'll just get to the material
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. And here I am performing for you.
Yeah.
I'll see you. Bye. Yeah, totally.
And if they start to talk to me, I sweat. I start to
That's
drip
hilarious.
sweat.
I sort of be like, don't say too much, don't say too little. Like, just be like, yes,
I'm great in a general. It's rare that
Oh, right.
anybody
I'm
set
great
me
in
up on
general,
it.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun. Then it's like we're supposed to talk.
Yeah,
Any other
exactly.
time, I'm like, I'm a mute. I'll say my lines and then go back to being mute.
And like an awkward end of a date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, thanks.
Yeah, but with my reps, I think it's because I really do acknowledge like the risk that they're taking for every actor that they rep. And I just feel like it's so easy for me to have the perspective of treat them as I want to be treated and better, right? And I sort of have a personal set of ethics as far as like employment is concerned. Like I hope to be able to employ people
Yeah, I
as
feel that
my
way
career
too.
grows. And I really want to have as much as I can a real set of ethics about how I treat people that I employ. And that's of my years as an employee, right?
Right.
And I really feel like, you know, I really hope that I can really continue to stick to my ethical, you know, guidelines for me about
I think
that.
in order to be president, you should have had to have waited tables for at
oh
least
God, that's
3 years.
such a great, yeah.
Right?
this
Like
is
that would
why-
be the best requirement
So
because that's
true.
how you learn to treat people.
Yeah, how you learn about and how people treat you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that and so I do a lot in the before I ever equal money to them, I really do a lot to nurture that relationship, treat them well. And I guess people will probably want specifics on that. And I think it has to be authentic to you. So like I do drop off nice things for them, you know, whether that's coffees or popsicles or, you know,
I
things
sent
that are.
flowers to my agent when she got me the "Oh Jerome, no" part.
Yes, right. Exactly.
She was like, "That was so unnecessary." But
No, and they did, and
Yeah.
I'd rather them say that in the sense of like, you know, I like that they act humble about it. I
Right.
think it's a good professional relationship instead of like, thanks for the flowers, finally.
Right.
Like, that would be a terrible relationship.
right.
But also like, yes, I think you know, if I booked something and I would want my reps to send, it would be nice for not that I want it, but it would be like a happy surprise if they sent me something. Then I would like to happily surprise them with something
Right,
that
right.
I send them, right? And so that happening, I also find that just because of how informed I am, I know that I can talk to my reps intelligently and not as like a crazy needy actor who's just on neuroses and hope, right? And then I have feedback and from my reps and how they want to be treated, and so that's an important.
How do
thing
you
to
get that?
gain. I
Like,
think you
hello,
can
what can
ask
I do
them.
for you? How would you like me
I
to
think you
treat
can
you?
ask, I think you can ask, like, so as far as, and you should, do it with charm. And this is again about authenticity. Like another person maybe wouldn't be able to communicate this in the same way that I would, but you certainly would, of like, so as far as like communication is concerned, like if I have a relationship that I know is advantageous, or I promise not to be a crazy person, like email you all the time, like, where's my auditions, because I trust you're doing your job. But if there's something, what's the best way for communication? Through your assistant, through you? Do you like to be CC'd? Like,
Right.
How do you appreciate that? And usually in asking a question like that, I will get even more feedback of like, when an actor, sort of disappears for too long, then I sort of feel like, oh, maybe they're not in this and they're not wanting this. Or giving a communication without, if I have a self-submit, self-tape that I feel particularly passionate about, I'm not like, definitely submit this. I'm like, take a look.
You'll do that without getting it. Like they haven't gotten you an audition, you'll just tape.
If I hear about a part or something that I feel like is particularly good for me, either through the ether or a connection or something.
I'd love to hear more about how you do that. Like the one experience I have of that where relationships did work out was a friend of mine for years and years and years married someone who's a manager. She's lovely. I went to their wedding. It was great. We like never talked business, but she was like, oh, I read this thing and it seems so perfect for you. You should have your reps get you in on it.
Well, you can do it when you start reading pilots and stuff. And when you follow deadline, I don't think it's hard to find that stuff.
But when you're doing a self-tape, are you just going off of whatever's in the, you're not going off of sides?
No, because I don't have them.
You're just going, this would be a good scene.
I will sometimes say like, and because all I think they need is, if there's even two scenes, but one's maybe a little sparse, I really think they just need the one to see like that you can do this thing, right?
Yeah.
But again, I say that with absolute proceed with caution because I don't want, a lot
not
of
every
actors
rep
hearing this and then thinking like, oh, well, I'll do that because they feel like that's active. I think you have to do it for yourself.
Right.
You have to do it because like you want to work on something and you want to, and I'm actually also kind of like seeing if it works.
Right.
Like a lot of what I'm doing is like,
and you're staying sharp. It's like a win-win.
It is.
But there are so many stories of, I have a friend who's been a series regular on 2 shows now. And the first one, he was like, I have to get in for this. And his agent was like, you're not right for it. And he just like fought and fought. And I don't remember how he finally got in the room, but he booked it. And I'm sure that happens hundreds of times where you don't book it, but it's also like if he hadn't had that fight, he wouldn't have been on that show.
I think so. I mean, I really think that at the end of the day, I think you have to, like any audition, really think of it as a personal experience first. And then if something happens from it, great.
Yeah.
But a lot of what I'm doing is I'm trying to see, like, is this a fit, like, between me and the character?
Right.
Is this a fit? And how is it a fit? And then is it a fit worth, like, if it's something that I'm not getting in for, or sometimes not getting in for yet, right? Is it a fit that I want to fight for?
Right.
Right? And how far do I, again, like, what hill do you want to die on, right? So, like, is this something I'm willing to die on, right?
So do you tape a lot more than you actually send to your reps? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And also it's like, again, getting comfortable and familiar with different creatives, different voices, different, all that sort of stuff, right? But I will send it to them and be like, hey, put this thing on tape. I think it's pretty great. Give it a look-see. If you feel like you can stand behind it and want to send it off, please do, right? And I've gotten auditions and I think I've booked through that. So
I heard Chris Gear from You're the Worst on a podcast talking about how he's much more comfortable self-taping and that when he gets an audition, he'll instead be like, let me self-tape and then if they like me, I'll go to the callback.
And again, I think that's a very particular kind of person that can get away with that because I have some people who I think feel that way and depending on who you are, that's going to be seen okay or that's not going to be seen okay.
What do you think would make it not okay? Like what, they couldn't be bothered to come in kind of a thing?
I think the attitude of your rep on you and also casting's attitude on you.
But I mean, like that they would be offended almost that you're not taking?
Yeah, that they're like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, everyone would rather have 5 million takes and come in and self-tape.
That's so interesting because I feel like I have friends where I'm like, you're auditioning all the time. And they're like, no, it's just tapes. I'm like, I would be so happy to have a million tapes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's 50-50 camp.
Yeah.
I feel like half of the people that I talk to really feel like, they hate self-tapes. They feel like, get me in the room. If
Yeah.
I'm in the room, I book.
Right.
And then I'd say the other camp is like, and they're like, I don't care that I drive. I don't care all that. Like, it's the collaboration with the casting director that gets them to fight for
Right.
me, that gets us to sort of have the right
true.
adjustments, that then gets me
The adjustment
job.
is a big thing.
It's a big
yeah.
thing. And then,
Or sometimes it hurts where you're like, it's the casting director's associate and they're giving
Yeah.
you an adjustment. And you're like, this
but
feels
see,
wrong.
that's also a different level.
Yeah.
And here's what I would say when talking to casting directors and their associates and their assistants. It's the difference between an actor who is seasoned versus an actor who is more green. Is that as a casting director will say to the green actor, "Let's try it like this," and the actor will straight up be like, "Okay, yes," and they'll just like yes and it and do
Right.
it. And a seasoned actor almost always will go, "Oh, okay, yeah." And they'll like try to process it and they'll talk about it. And they'll be like, because
Right.
I was thinking, because the difference between this scene and that scene, and I didn't
Right.
want it to end too much like that. So like that was a little bit of my trepidation.
Yeah.
And then the casting person is like, I see what you're saying. Uh-huh. I guess what I'm feeling is that it's coming across a little blah, 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 and I want to come across a little bit more blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then a collaboration ensues. And
Yeah.
then what I'm told from agents and from casting is that's then when they fight for you, is when you get the performance.
That's
and they were
interesting.
indicative to helping you get that performance.
Right. They feel a little bit of ownership.
They feel a little ownership in it.
Makes
and
so much
then
sense.
that's when they go to bat for you.
Right.
Is because they feel like, here's this product I helped make so great that it's
Right.
what I know you want to see.
Right.
So hire this
I
product.
helped. It's like
Exactly.
that feeling.
Of course
it's the
you
same
would.
actually even with pitching shows
Sure.
where people say don't write specs because if a network is involved in helping you shape it,
Then
they're going to
have-
fight for it.
I know, isn't the spec thing? We could have a whole fucking 4 hours.
Yeah, I
on specs.
know. What I'm having a really hard time with the representation side, and I had
Is
an
it the
audition,
bigger agency? Uh-huh. Yes. Uh-huh.
and I got an audition for my own show, which is already crazy. Later than everybody else, I'm getting all these messages being like, "I'm going in for your show, like so exciting," and I'm like, "I'm not."
Right.
So then I get the audition.
Okay.
I have the wrong sides.
Oh no. Oh no. No. Avital, no.
Yes.
Oh no.
Like that's like a place
No.
that I forever this agency. I'm like, oh, one day maybe I could be with an agency like that.
But that's-
and I have the wrong side. And it's for
I
pilot
can't.
season. I have 2 auditions. One is that one for
Yes.
my own show,
Right.
and the other was a request, and I was pinned for it. And 0 other auditions.
You guys can't see me, like I'm so upset for her. Here's what
0 other auditions.
But I can't tell you
And
the
I can
number-
act.
Right. Yes. No. Like it's what you've been here to do, and
Yes.
also you can tell a story because it's literally what you got paid.
Right, and you're
And
licensing
certainly-
this series that stars me and one other person. Really,
Like,
you know,
we
like
figured
other
it
people
out.
come in, but
Right, exactly.
it's just 2 of us talking to
Like
each other.
your dog's there, and then that's it.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, okay, so many great things that I love about this story is that I've heard this story, I want you to know, from my friends who were on other shows who, yes, exactly the same thing where a role wasn't like they wrote it for themselves, which is own really source of torture and trauma, but that like their writing partner sold the show and wrote this part, not even a big part. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking like a side character, like costs them nothing to take a chance. There's no serious regular contract that's going to be signed. It's like, bring him in as a guest star, bring him in as a co-star. If we like him, we can keep it going. And if we don't, we'll move it along. Right.
Right.
Like it's easy. It's movable.
Yeah.
And cannot get them in for an audition for their own show and then finally get them in and then they book it because it was in fact written for them. So surprise, they're
Yeah.
great in it, right? And even but it was like fighting like complete and total hell to
Yeah.
get them even just to audition.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
the audition. That
Like,
that's
why?
crazy.
No, why the audition? Like it's just nothing to bring somebody
I-
into audition.
Luckily, I had when I get in for producers or whatever at this
my God.
audition with the wrong sides,
God,
and
I
it's
just
and
wanna kill myself.
the casting director or the assist or whoever it is like sees me because I see other people's discarded sides. That's how I realize, and I'm like, this is not what I have, and I'm like, excuse me, are these the sides that we're doing today? And he's like, yeah, your agent should have given them to you, and just kept walking, like so rude. I mean,
my
clearly
God.
stressed, but I was
Yeah,
like,
sure.
okay.
It's the pilot season, so they're dying.
Yeah.
right?
And when I came in, I knew Hillary only because who wrote the pilot
Yes,
and
right.
was showrunner.
Right.
Because I like reached out to her on Facebook and was like, hey, you're doing this thing. And we met for coffee. Not because anybody bothered to like connect us or
Connect you.
introduce us. So when I came in, I was like, I had the
Can I
wrong
pause
sides.
on this though? Can I really pause on
Yeah.
this? Because I talk to actors all the time about learning to be your own fiercest advocate. I think that it's a very common thing, and it's really
Oh, I was terrified to reach out to her.
well. Also, here's the thing. I think when you get here in like your 20s, you know, you assume and you think rightfully that like other people know more than you. I'd say one. And two, you assume that because people are hired to take care of you,
That
they
they
will
will
in fact take care of you. And I don't think it's like our business is special in this zone. I think I imagine I would find this in any business that I was a part of, but I just really want to really take this opportunity to point out that you took care of yourself, and it is scary, and it does feel weirdly like, am I being desperate, or am I overstepping, or am I,
Right.
like all these things that can come in, right? But of course, you should meet with a person who's written a pilot and is show running something based off of something you
Right.
like the fact that you have to set it up is abysmal, but also why actors, why showrunners, why creatives like lose their fucking minds and move to Taos, New Mexico, right?
Right,
It's because they're
right.
like, what, I have to reach out?
And I almost didn't do it only because I trusted that my agents were going
Well,
to.
this is the biggest thing. That's what I'm saying about being your own advocate. It's just
Yeah.
like when I talk to actors about reading your checks, following your money.
Right, which I'm so bad at, but I need to get better at
You're
it.
so better at it. Okay.
I'm very proud with one writing job, follow up with my managers like 8 months later being like, hey, when I was doing taxes.
Sure, yeah.
I was like,
I'm seeing a discrepancy.
I never
here.
got this money. And they were like, let's check. And then I was like, oh yeah, no, we never collected this money. It was like,
Do you see what I'm
great.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yes, does it suck that you have to be your own, to a lot of degrees, your own agent, your own manager,
Yeah.
your own publicist, your own lawyer, your own accountant, listen, you guys, I would love for that to not be true, but at the end of the day, it's your business, your career, your responsibility.
Right.
And I really have noticed in my own evolution, you know how it's like you have a point of view in a story, and that's the thing that like guides the story, right? I think it's the same thing for your career. It's like you are the point,
Yeah.
and like you push it forward, and then everyone else follows your lead. And I
Right.
think it's a misconception to think that that's not true. And also, like we were saying before, though it is a balance of like, am I being obnoxious?
Well, and I
or being
think
helpful?
I think about this a lot, and I don't know the answer, but I think once we were moving into like free production
Yeah.
and even filming, that maybe I was obnoxious. Like I feel like I did overstep, and and it was weird because I felt so small. I felt the opposite. I felt like I was just shrinking and staying out of the way. But I think that self-consciousness and like
Yes.
nobody's saying, this is your involvement. This is what you're supposed
But
to
this
do.
is why I've been so like big on mentorship too in our business.
Right.
Like I remember
wish. I
in
want a
my
mentor.
20s and just feeling
Yeah.
like, God, like I just wish somebody could tell me, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, because if there was somebody who was like, okay, so they're going to try and take advantage of you. It's going to be like this. Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Get one under your belt. Worst case scenario this, best case scenario this. And like is somebody that really you could believe
Yeah.
like is on your side. Okay, let's do our 5 questions.
Okay.
Okay, great. Social media.
At Avital Ash
Okay,
on
do you wanna
Twitter,
spell that?
on Instagram. Yeah, it's A, V as in Victor, ITALASH. That's Twitter, Instagram. Is there something else? That's it for social media, right?
I think
I
mostly.
think there's an Avital Ash 420 on Facebook.
That's hilarious.
It's like a comedian page.
I like it very much. Okay, great. What do you wish somebody had managed to teach you or got you to understand when you were just a wee babe entering this business?
That's a good question.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of wish I had learned to relax, but mostly to trust myself that there is no magical thing. I think I keep thinking that like, movie stars have X, Y, and Z. And sometimes, I mean, when you watch Brad Pitt, you're like, yeah, of course.
I mean, he's just magical.
Yes.
To do, right?
He's beautiful and magical
Yeah,
and
all
so
the things.
charming.
Yes,
But he
totally.
is, and I almost don't believe it as I'm saying it,
Yeah.
just like a regular person.
He is, right.
And
You're right that you're a little bit like, is
is he? I'm not convinced. But like he has to take
Of course
shits
he
and
is, right.
stuff,
He's a regular person.
Yeah.
Yes, uh-huh.
And just like that, I guess. Oh, and to take risks.
Yeah.
Be willing to take risks. Like I didn't even think about trying stand up, or there were times where I would forget how much joy reading brought me, and I just like wouldn't be reading because I'm like, oh no, I need to be focused. Or I guess I wouldn't be reading fiction. I'd be like reading books on acting or and how much like leading a satisfying life helps everything.
I think it's everything. And also I'm always reminded about that. Like I was talking to my brother today and he was talking about, you know, different jobs of different family members and how they're doing and all of that. And I remember and I just love every time I talk to like somebody who's living a normal life and they're having like, you know, or they're just talking about like job things. I'm always like so relaxed because I think there's this thing of like, because you've chosen the thing that you love, that it can't then also have all the things that jobs have. Right. Which is like, you know, problem with your coworkers, problem with your bosses. The system isn't set up that people aren't paying you on time. They're not paying you correctly. They're not counting your hours right. You know, they're expecting more from you than you signed up to give them. And there's power dynamics and politics. And like in every job that exists. And in every job, it's important that you have a fulfilling life because that's what makes the job like not life or death in every moment, right? But everyone who has a job comes home and then like panics to their, you know, partner about their crazy day at work and the crazy people or their crazy coworkers, right?
It really is a job.
It's a job.
And at first it was easy to look at it as like my salvation. This will be the thing that proves I'm worthy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And no one thing can prove that you're worthy. It just doesn't
internally
exist.
you prove that you're worthy. You believe that you're worthy, but that's something that you self-inherently develop.
Right. I think we have to believe that we're worthy because we're here.
That's exactly right. Like, good luck to everybody on that one. But
I mean, we all exist right now, so we're supposed to be here because we are.
But I do feel like, to whatever degree, I can just release, I'd say, the entitlement of feeling like I've chosen what I love to do for a living, so it has to be all love all the time. Yeah. Is the healthier way to go about it. Like uncoupling my happiness from the work. Yeah. And that it can make me happy, but I'm not a failure if it makes me sad. I'm not a failure if it makes me angry or makes me frustrated, because that's what any relationship can do. And your relationship to your work is certainly no exception, no matter what job you have.
Right. And like you said, often the time that you're the most frustrated is right before you're making a breakthrough.
100%.
So I guess there's a bunch. It's like, on the one hand, I think diversifying is important. Mm-hmm. Don't get too attached to any one thing of this is going to be the thing. Like find different ways to use your creative expression. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's going to be a stand-up or director or writer, but there are still ways that whatever excites you, whatever lights you up, where you can do it and not wait on anybody else.
That's right.
I think 7P10E is a good example just of like making it for no money. Mm-hmm. You know, and like you were saying, well, then it's going to take up more time. And it's still resources, but I didn't have money. And
that's it. A lot of time in your 20s, you have time over money, right? And so it's like you have time and energy over money. And so you're willing to put in the time and the energy, and those are still resources that maybe you can put in. But also some people, you know, a lot of the people listening, they've married, you know, well. They have trust funds. They have parents who will support them. And I just say to those of you who are listening in that department, you know, I think I have a lot of I've watched a lot of actors have that, and then because they didn't feel like they had to get it done or they weren't going to eat, that they felt that they didn't sort of hone in on the strictness of their focus as much. But then I want you to also know I have plenty of friends who felt that because they didn't have that, that they were at a disadvantage.
You can always blame 100 things.
You sure can. But at the end of the day, I really think whether you're doing, you know, 7E, 10P, that
7P10E, but it's fine.
Whether you're doing 7P10E, I just have to remember it.
That's kind of serious.
Yeah, it's good. Whether you're doing 7P10E or whether you're doing a podcast or whether you're working on auditions, like whatever it is, I do think it's important to know, like, it's hours put in. It's sweat equity there, you know. And so what do you want to put your sweat equity into?
There's the in that same David Mamet book, I don't know why I remember this so vividly, but a line that says there's nothing ignoble about honest sweat. And that's the thing is like, it is sweat, but sometimes that feels really good.
Yes.
To work up a sweat, whether you're like working out or doing a podcast or whatever. It feels better than waiting around and being hopeless. And for me, I just have not, I personally did not find another way in.
And I would say, too, it's also about knowing yourself. Like, you know, if you are a person who sits around in your own neuroses for too much, then you have to know actually the best and healthiest option for you is to put yourself to work.
Totally. Right? And those neuroses are relatable. So if you're writing about them
so true.
or, you know, honing in on them in some way.
Yeah.
It's like a weird superpower where your weakness is also your strength.
Always the way, though.
And another thing that has been really hard that I feel like I'm getting better at now is jealousy and seeing people who are like not nice people and not not as talented.
Can I tell you what makes that easier? Is the longer you're in it, the more you see that it comes to the other side.
Yeah.
And that everyone has like a rise up and then a fall down.
Right.
And some people that's a quick rise up and then a slow fall down. But like everyone goes from one side of the mountain to the other.
Well, and people hear about it too. Like it behooves you to be a nice person.
God, that's so true.
Eventually people hear. So, you know, I have somebody who was like very mean to me and isn't that successful, but successful enough that I can compare myself and make her out to be this like super successful. But I hear other people going like, oh, that person's the worst. And it also, I had this really great moment where I realized like, I don't want people looking at me and feeling bad about themselves. So I should stop doing that to other people. And that kind of like freed me up. Like, I don't need to feel bad about myself in comparison to other people. Also, I'm doing them like a disservice and future me a disservice.
Yeah. I love also the thing about like whenever you think negative feelings about anyone, it only affects you.
Right.
Like the realization that like, it's like, okay, well, if you feel that person is winning and you're losing and you're going to feel like negative about the fact that they're winning and you're losing, then all that person's still over there winning. Like they don't have any contact to like your emotion and your whatever. And it's just you sitting here feeling bad feelings. Right. And so the only person that's affected and corroded by it is in fact you. Right.
And to that point, sometimes you see somebody and it looks like they're living the life you want and they're not. You just don't know what they're going through.
I have to tell you, the number of people that I'm like, I see their Instagram life and I know what's happening in their life and I'm like, I see what you're doing. And this is not authentic, right?
I mean, to me, I feel like it's so the opposite. Like when you're not posting, you're probably having a good time.
That's what I always notice. Yeah. The more you're posting, the more I'm pretty out about like my feeling about inspirational quotes on Instagram. Yeah. But like the more you post, the more I'm concerned for you.
Yes.
Like I'm fine 100%. With like one or two every now and then. Yeah. It's like something moves you, right? Yeah. But when it's like every month is like 6 to 8.
You're going through something.
Quotes, I'm like, it's bad for you.
Something is up. Also, I feel like it doesn't get any easier. Like there are certain things, like you were saying, maybe you'll sleep better the night before. Yeah. But every time I am trying to make something, I go, who am I kidding? I don't know how to do this.
I feel that way all the time.
Yeah.
I do. I feel
before an audition, before
I feel like I don't know what
moving into production, pre-production.
Yeah, making it up.
Yeah. And you know what? I think no one knows what they're doing.
No, I mean, that's Ricky Gervais's quote, right? Is once he realized that everyone was just making shit up, he decided he would be the one making it all up. Which is about getting your own power, right? Yeah. It's like once I realized they were all making it all up, I was like, oh. Yeah. Well, then I'll make it up. Fuck it.
Right. Right? You're not any less capable.
I had that experience with acting coaches and acting teachers when I sort of realized they were all just sort of giving an opinion.
Right.
Then I was sort of like, oh.
And then you can take what works.
That's it. Then I should just consider your opinion. Yeah. And have my own.
Right.
I shouldn't feel like, oh, you're right and I'm wrong. Yeah.
Also, patience was really, really hard for me. Yeah. And I'm having an easier time. Through weird name dropping ties into your work, but I know Bob Odenkirk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bob.
Who's the loveliest.
Yeah, right.
And we were talking about something. It was right before I left to Israel. And he was like, I want to pick your brain because I'm working on this script about somebody who's an actress and at a crossroads and deciding if she should like teach. And I was leaving to teach in Israel, teach English. And when we were sitting down, he said, I think that you're kind of like me where you're not going to really like be in your prime until you're older.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you're talking about your thing. I'm like, I see you in your late 30s and 40s, like, and I think she's a badass.
Thanks.
I do.
I mean, I hope for work until then, too.
No, I do, too, but, like, really coming into your own, you know, like...
Yeah, and letting go of that sense of it has to be now or never.
Like, well, also, it's a lie. I mean, I think all the time about all the times I was told that, you know, if you don't hit it by the time you're 30, and actually, when I look at all of my friends, particularly the women, it was all 30 and after.
That's cool.
And I also just think then they had put their years in.
Right.
You know? But it's like it was after 30s when things really started to.
Yes. And there's always the
move.
exception, someone who jumps
sure.
the line. And I feel like when we move here, we all think we're going to be that exception.
Right.
It's okay to not be.
But I also experienced most of the people that jump the line quit already.
Right. Or they're not prepared and they unravel.
Right. Well, either way, they quit.
Yeah,
Right. They
right.
But
Or like they stopped being hireable.
both are true, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the people that I know, and there are people who were successful in their 20s, but that are still working, but there are people who started when they were quite young.
Right.
And so like their 20s wasn't what their 20s is. It
Right.
wasn't like immediate
They started
success.
at 5.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like
And you talk a lot about that too. Like you can, and I love that you do that. You can't help that. Like it's okay that you didn't start acting at 5.
I lost that war. Like, I don't know what,
Yeah.
it's either okay with me or
Just
it's not
are
okay
where
with
you
me.
are.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly
you
right.
can't change it. So
I might as well make
embrace
peace
it.
and
Yeah.
right, exactly right. Yeah. Okay. Lastly, mildly interesting.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you do this.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Everyone.
we'll
forgets-
just,
yeah. Anything that's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, it can be a recommendation. It could be something you learned. It can be sort of anything like that.
I grew up an Orthodox Jew.
Okay. Tell me. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Locally, where'd you grow up Orthodox?
Miami Beach, Florida.
Wow.
There's a big Jewish community there.
Yes, I'm aware.
So it was a real reach to come to Los Angeles and try to be an actor.
Orthodox. That's
yeah.
really intense.
I spoke Yiddish as a baby, but I don't remember it. But I speak Hebrew now. And
Is everybody still pretty Orthodox?
my brothers are all atheists. My parents are
interesting.
still Orthodox.
Yeah, it always goes that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The new generation is like, "Sasa!"
I think
Right?
somebody else told me it skips a
It's- yeah, it
generation.
does,
so maybe
right?
the next ones.
Because then they're like, my parents are atheists and I saw what that did for them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into
Right.
being an Orthodox Jew like my grandparents.
Right, like if you
Yeah.
and Jesse had kids, they'd like have to rebel by becoming accountants.
100%, because my parents are accountants.
Oh my
right?
gosh, that's so perfect.
Exactly,
Yeah, I guess my dad actually was a CPA for a time.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom's an accountant, so it's like,
so
God, I'm not
perfect.
going to be chained to a desk and be an accountant.
believe I
the rest of
nailed
my
that.
life, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I become this actor who then is like known for like working numbers, which is really funny.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, I think about that.
Oh, that's
That,
so
now
interesting.
Everyone's like, you're very mathematical. And I'm like, I want you to know this is a new development. This
Yeah,
is
it
an
feels like so
evolution of
part of
Audrey.
you.
It's not like where I've always been. And it's
Yeah.
been years of being like, I'm lost at sea. That I was
Yeah.
like, maybe there's math to guide me home. Like the very last thing that I could think of was math. And then finally I was like, numbers. And I'll hold on to them as tightly as I can.
Yeah, you seem so comfortable in that world.
That's really funny.
Also, speaking of numbers, I felt cool that I like made it before 30 with the CBS deal.
Yeah,
I was 29,
right.
but and then I had a small part in that pilot, which
Yes.
never aired.
Yes.
And so finally, this FX FX series is my first TV credit,
Yes,
really.
Really.
And I'm
Interesting.
33.
I think that's exactly the number that I see everyone at.
Really?
Just so you know. It's like
cool.
literally like 32, 33, 34.
Yeah.
It's when I start seeing people, women, I would say. And I think it's a little bit about the age gap, which women experience. And it's a little bit just about like writing stories and like what they're writing stories about, you know, which I guess what the age gap is.
Yeah.
But also then just relationships over time and experience. And I
Right.
think it's about that.
I think a lot of those things come back down the line, like weird little seeds that you sow.
They sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, thank you so much for
Thank you so
coming
much for
on,
having me.
And thanks for reaching out. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks for
And-
responding. I'm excited to have you on my
Oh my God, I'm super excited. That'll be really fun.
We're going to make
And-
Audrey watch a horror movie.
Oh my God, I'm so nervous.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, Ethan Crenshaw is back. Ethan Crenshaw. He's 6'5", feeling alive. Ethan Crenshaw. I love Ethan. He's my homie. I just love him. He's just so sweet. So Ethan's back. We are doing a follow-up episode. So if you haven't listened to Ethan's episode, listen to it before you listen to this one. And we're just gonna do like a hey, how's it going now? Surprise! He joined the union. He's booked some jobs. Things are going well. He got new headshots after I ripped him apart about his old headshots. So it's been a couple years, and I'm just really excited to do a little update, which I know you guys love too. So it's a leveling up episode, which I know you love, with Ethan Crenshaw. Special thanks today to Avital Ash. Avital. That's so great. So she has her own podcast, He's Right Behind You, where she has people come over and watch horror movies and then they discuss it. Jesse and I are going to go over and watch Cabin in the Woods. I hate horror films, so we're going to see how this goes. I shouldn't say I hate horror films when I'm friends with Kate Siegel. It sounds like a bad career move, but when I say I hate horror movies, I'll just say they scare me. And I live a scary life already. That's how I feel about it. So that's her podcast if you want to check it out and give it a listen, a listen-y-loo, and find her on social media. She's so great, you guys. I'm just such a big fan of Avital. And I'm really so grateful for her sharing of her experience. It's the sort of thing that we all want to know. Like, what's happening over there? What happens? And so many people are like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to make a pilot. I'm just going to become the next Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And I'm like, great. Also, this. So I just want to know the game that we're playing. Big thanks to our first draft editor, Patricia Cuffie-Jones. Also, Thomas Snodgrass. He doesn't live across the street anymore, but luckily the internet exists. And also to my executive producer and husband, still so handsome, you guys, Jesse Lumen, the one, the only, the rock star. Show music is brought to you by Ari De Niro, and our theme song assistance is still brought to you by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill. All right, you guys, don't forget your towels. So many of you got towels at the live show on the meetup, so you better take that towel and don't forget it.